and to Little Tokyo over the river. And this was kind of the place that people came to, and they said something about the dollar turned over 7 times within the community, and that's how much people did business here. And it was much bigger. Went all the way down to the produce market, which is over on 9th Street, where Parker Center is today, was part of Little Tokyo, and all of that other part was filled in. Going east of Alameda was also residents and businesses. And then the first wave of, the first occurrence of the community being disrupted was World War II. People were, forcibly removed, businesses were shut down, and it became Bronzeville. It's on your little paper there. So African Americans moved into this community during those war years. The community came back, rebuilt, has a lot of festivals and events to try to retain that character of Little Tokyo. And then another attack came in the 50s with Parker Center being built, which is the police headquarters, right across on San Pedro towards LA Street.
We'll be seeing that during the tour.
Yeah, and taking a big chunk of Little Tokyo. And then later on in the 70s, and this is kind of where my generation comes in, the baby boomers, the people that were influenced by, third world ethnic studies and the civil rights movement, and all of that sort of was the framework that influenced a lot of us, the Vietnam War, coming back from college, coming back from the war, coming to Little Tokyo and seeing this as our home and identifying with it. Some of us never identified with it, but we identified with it, and it became an integral part of where we saw our political work, our cultural work, our social life, and a very important part of us. So even though we don't live here, many of us are outside. The movement was very large. The movement for redress started. But in the 70s, it was around redevelopment, which was, again, now the third time that Little Tokyo is being attacked, where, good and bad, it was going to be redeveloped, but we didn't know if it was for our interests or not. So that's when an organization was formed to fight for benefits, make sure there was senior housing, that businesses, small businesses were taken care of, and there was replacement or some relocation benefits and lowered rents. And, we'll talk more about that as well. But, so there's still a lot of stake in Little Tokyo from that, but I'm speaking from my generation, from that generation, and people that were involved in redress. It brought the community together in a big way, and this was kind of the center of a lot of activities. So, and now Little Tokyo is constantly being under attack. We have the regional connector coming in. Other people are eyeing it and seeing it as a very desirable place, which it is. For a while it wasn't that desirable, but now it's become very prime because of its location to many different places and with the transportation. So we've had a lot of challenges, and we have organizations that have come together. We're a strong community. I think that, you'll hear about the different issues that we fought, with a jail coming in, a possible jail coming in. So our community has had to unite in many ways and had to define itself. And so I think those were important struggles, and we'll go more into that in detail in the tour.
So what we're going to do during the tours, Little Tokyo is really comprised of, residents. We have visitors, nonprofits, and businesses. And so we wanted to bring some representation from each of those different segments, just to kind of talk a little bit about what they feel that their role in Little Tokyo is. And so the first person we want to introduce is Brian. Brian can introduce himself, but he runs the Fugetsudo business, which is just two storefronts down. I think this is its 110th, 110th year. It's the oldest business in Little Tokyo. But Brian also does a lot of work with the Koban, with a lot of different festivals and organizations in Little Tokyo, and so it'd be good to have his.
Koban.
Yeah.
Actually, good afternoon, guys. I actually got started just a little bit after Kathy got started, basically. But, when I was going through college, I really didn't have plans to take over my family business, to tell you the truth. In fact, I graduated back in 1980 from Cal State LA, and there were a lot of different opportunities available at that time. The economy was growing. But part of the involvement, and the reason why I got involved with my family business was the minute I got out of college, we were fighting that eminent domain of my dad's bakery over on 2nd Street. We used to have two businesses. We have traditional Japanese pastries on one side, and the first bakery that was ever built in Little Tokyo. So my introduction to Little Tokyo and all the redevelopment was not a very favorable one. I spent 10 to 15 years fighting the system, fighting the city, fighting CRA. CRA did, at the end, kind of worked with the businesses, but in the beginning it was only developers, bankers, and architects were in these meetings dictating what we were going to master plan in this area. Very few business people were involved. So to make it right, that's how I got involved. I'm a small little business owner, although it's been here for 110 years. I've dealt with all the ups and downs through the history of Little Tokyo. My family, for 110 years, we figured they dealt with the Depression, they dealt with the relocation during World War II, and then myself coming through this area about the late 90s, early 90s, when this area just became blighted. To believe it or not, only 15 years ago, I was the only business left. I am about 8 doors down from this corner. There was a time where I was the only business from here to the corner, believe it or not, for about 3 or 4 years. So we have continued through the good times and the bad times here, and we're looking at good times. But for a small business person here, with all the history that we've had, one of our concerns is how quickly and how fast development comes in. It's how big it comes in, as far as what you scale. I'm sorry. Our major concerns for ourselves and little small businesses is like parking. Security is number one on the list, right before parking actually. I personally spent about 22 years trying to secure this area. Actually going on the streets and walking the streets at night with volunteers. At one point we had 50 volunteers to try to clean up this neighborhood. I think if no efforts were made to clean up this neighborhood, we wouldn't see all the housing that's here now. I believe solely maybe 15 years ago, people would have looked at this area and was so blighted that I wouldn't think that they would think that this had a potential. But as the area got cleaned up, that's how it became a potential development area. Now that a few have come up, we see all these other housing units come up too. When the redevelopment first came in, it was a real hardship for us because it was destroying our community. We were getting brand new buildings, but we were losing our community teamwork. And that's how we lost control of the streets and security in the area. We had beautiful buildings that replaced the old dilapidated buildings, but we lost control of the streets. And so as time went on, I realized that the community was very important to get back in together. We had nothing but senior citizens living down here, so security was a real terrible issue. Now that we have younger people living in the area, it provides some security. But as far as the development in this area, even as fast as the housing is growing, it is a concern to me too, because whether this community can keep up with it. There are certain adjustments that every development gives our community to adjust to, whether it be the businesses, but we have other things involved here. Where our identity as Little Tokyo is a cultural enclave, something that we want to preserve. But as we go through quick redevelopment, increase of housing so rapidly, and it's mixed, most of the time it's mixed use too. So it is going to affect us and how we can keep that little face there as considered called Little Tokyo. I think one of the other concerns we have is with these new lots that are Lot 7 and the Alameda and First projects that we're looking at as possibly trying to do a master overlay for it, master plan for it. I guess our concern is, when they go through the construction, how it will affect the local area. I've been through the redevelopment through the 80s and 90s. We had trucks coming through here, large trucks, dust, dirt. We had so many projects going at one time that it was just a really bad hardship for the small businesses here. I suffered through about 15 to almost 20 years through this area, of just barely making it. And I know a lot of the businesses that were here have gone during that period, so I'm very concerned about how, when we take on redevelopment or development projects here, the pace of them also determines how fast the community can adjust to it, and also the inconvenience to the community too. So we have this Metro Rail coming in. It's definitely going to be a big hardship for us, for many businesses. Street closures, construction, things like that. So I am concerned about how many businesses we may possibly lose during this time, because we've already seen it along the goal line of how many businesses failed during the construction time. And then I guess that's about it, unless you have some questions for me.
We're going to be covering a lot of that stuff, I think, as we kind of go to the different sites. So I think a lot of the same themes will be reiterated throughout the tour.